All right, guys, welcome to the video. It's Kenny here. We're going to be doing here is we're going to be talking about two things. We're going to be talking about customer experience, and customer status levels. It's kind of funny because this is part of a seminar, a presentation that I did in front of a group of people. And when I got to the place that I was going to do the presentation, it was in front of a company. They kind of freaked out a little bit because I was planning on doing like a 45-minute presentation for them. And we had 1, 2, 3 slides. And the guy was like, "Are you sure? Like most people come here with like 400." I'm like, "Dude, just listen. Just sit in the corner and sip your little coffee and everything will be fine." So we have 3 slides. We're going to go through this in depth because this is the key when you're selling anything, whether it's on paper, on the telephone, in person, on a webinar, on a stage, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's really all about these two things on both sides of the equation. So I want to run through these slides really quickly, and then we're just going to kind of talk it out so that you guys understand. All right, so number one, every high ticket sale that you participate in, whether you're a buyer or a seller, is always about a great customer experience and raising the status level of the buyer. It's very important that you understand that from both the buyer's perspective and the seller's perspective so that you understand what you're getting and understand what you're really selling to people. Okay, now, when I say high ticket sale, that doesn't really necessarily mean a dollar amount. Okay, I'll give you an example that we're going to talk about a lot. Starbucks is a high ticket sale. Okay, why is that a high ticket sale? It's $3. Why is that a high ticket sale? Because 7-Eleven coffee is $1.50, right? Gas station coffee will probably kill you, but that's $1.25, right? So when you look at that specific product, Starbucks is a high ticket sale. Now, for a computer, a $3.50 purchase is not a high ticket sale. It's like nothing, right? So it's relative to the industry or the product or service that you're actually buying. Now, on the other side of the coin is low ticket sales. So if I'm buying a cup of coffee at a gas station, like I said, it'll probably kill me, but if I'm buying a cup of coffee at a gas station, it's because because I want a cup of coffee and the gas station is right in front of me. That's the only reason why. I'm dying for a cup of coffee and the gas station is directly in front of me. I'm not going to drive 3 miles out of the way to get a cup of coffee. I'm just going to go right to the place that's right in front of me, right? And it's the same thing with everything. Like if you're sitting at home and you want a bottle of water and you don't have any water in your house for some crazy reason, your faucet's broken or something, you're going to go to the closest place to get a bottle of water. You're not going to drive 9 miles out of the way to buy a $1.50 bottle of smart water or something, right? So lower ticket sales relative to the industry or product or service that you're buying or selling is all about convenience. And the examples are, they go on and on. McDonald's is about convenience, right? Great company, but when they're actually selling their products, and we're going to use them as an example as well, but when they're actually selling their products to their customer base, it's about convenience. When they're selling the corporation's real moneymaker, which is a franchise, when they're selling that, it's about status and experience because that's a high ticket sale. So that's different. But when they're selling their hamburgers, french fries, chicken nuggets, and all that, it's about convenience. You drive through the window, 5 minutes later, you're eating, right? Convenience. Certainly not about quality. So let's go into this first, and then we'll talk a little bit about the second part of it. Every high ticket sale gives a great customer experience and raises the status level of a buyer, okay? When you walk into a meeting with somebody and the CEO of a company is sitting down at a desk, he's got a suit on, got a tie on, ready to go, right? You walk in, you introduce yourself, shake his hand, you sit down, or maybe you're standing up, or whatever the case may be, and you look down and his laptop says Acer on the back of it. I don't care who you are, what you do for a living, what you look like, or what you think, you make an instant judgment about that person. It's human nature. Every single living human being does it. Everybody. Okay? It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. In your head, you are making a judgment call right then and there. Because you you look at that person, you say, listen, this guy, boom, he has a $300 computer. Right off the top of your head, that's what you're thinking. The first thing, that's what you think. Same thing with clothes, right? You walk up with someone, they got clothes on, you make an instant judgment based off of what they're wearing. It's the first thing that you see. Right? Now, if that person is dressed like I dress every single day, which is like, Nike basketball shorts and a t-shirt, you probably think I'm a poor bum that doesn't do anything, right? I walk into stores all the time, the Apple store, the car dealership, whatever. Nobody helps me, and I wouldn't help me either because I don't look like a qualified prospect, right? So I'm making a judgment call based off of what I see. Walk into that same office with that same CEO. He has the same suit on. You're doing the same presentation. You shake his hand. You sit down. You look across the desk, and he has a MacBook Pro. Different judgment, right? Now, I'm not saying that these judgments are right, wrong, fair, or whatever, but it is what it is. It happens, right? It's the same judgment, and people argue with me about this all the time. I live in New York, so I'm like surrounded by like hippie communist animals all the time. So I hear this stuff all the time, right? I'll tell someone, I say, listen, you're walking down the street at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't care who you are or what you think or what you do. If you see three kids, no matter what they look like, and they got jeans on and a hoodie and the hoodie's up and they're like walking and they're like yelling and screaming, you're probably going to instantly think this might be an issue, right? That's human nature. That's normal. You're making an instant judgment call based off of what you see. That's just how we react. That doesn't make us bad people. That makes us human. Now, it would be unhuman and weird if you say, oh, yeah, three 21-year-old kids at 2 o'clock in the morning walking down the street, screaming and yelling, drunk, I'm just going to walk up to him and say hi, and everything's probably going to be fine. That would be insane, and you'd probably be dead if you did that more than once or twice a week. I mean, you just would be, right? So we make these instant judgment calls based off of what we see. We can use that, and we should use that, as a selling tool when we're promoting or selling products and services that fit into the high-ticket category. Because on the buyer's side, deep down inside, that's really all they care about. Customer experience and status. A lot of people are going to focus on things like ease of use, right? You hear people say all the time, those people that write like, the consultative selling books and all that other crap that doesn't work, right? They talk about, well, you need to tell them the benefit of the product and how it's going to help them. Yeah, that's true. You do need to say that. But listen to the difference between these two lines and tell me which one is more powerful. Let's say I'm selling a car, which I did for a while. I train a lot of car salespeople now. Let's say I'm selling a car to somebody, and I'm walking them around the car, right? And I say to them, oh, look at that. Car's got power windows. That's awesome, right? It's a benefit, right? It's going to you roll the window down easier, whatever. Car's got a radio. Listen to the radio while you're driving, right? Car's got airbags, safety. One of my things I used to do when I sold Hyundais, one of the things I used to do is I used to open up the hood. We had this thing called a single liquid-filled engine motor mount. I still don't know what the hell it is, but what I do know is that when I shook the car with my leg, the engine would shake. And I had this big thing that I would say, the reason why this is so cool is because it's a single liquid-filled engine motor mount. And if you get into a car accident at anything over 20 miles an hour, front-end collision, the engine is going to snap off, drop to the floor, your car's going to crumple up like an accordion, and you're going to be safe inside a steel cage. Most cars have these motor mounts all over the engine, so what happens is that 20-mile-an-hour collision crumples the bumper, hits the motor, goes through the front of the car, and kills everybody inside. Which one would you feel safer driving? That was one of the things that I did during my walk around, word for word. Okay, now that's a benefit of the deal, right? And that's good, and we need to talk about all that stuff. But one of the most powerful things that I used to say to people is something like, let me ask you a question. We're sitting down at the desk, we were talking for a while, right? Then, I'm not saying that to them. I'm putting you in the scene. We're at the desk. We've been talking for a while. We did the test drive, went through the benefits, went through the features, walked around the car, showed him everything, likes the car, likes the color, everything's perfect. And I say to him, in this tone, in this pace, I just look at him and I say, let me ask you a quick question. What do you think your neighbor's going to think when you pull home in a brand new car with a big red ball on the front of it? I'm planting the seed of status and experience. Okay? Everybody in the world wants to be better than the other person. Again, human nature. You got to know this stuff. If you're going to sell stuff, and if you're in business, you got to sell stuff, right? If you're going to sell stuff, you have to understand what makes people tick. And you have to be able to use that in a number of different ways. And really, what separates me from 99.9999999% of salespeople out there is that I concentrate on the psychology of it. Now, the process is very important, but the process anybody can follow. I can give you a script, you can read it, you'll make sales. But you're never going to be a monster unless you understand the psychology. Unless you understand why you say the things that you say, in the order that you say them, in the tone that you say them, in the pace that you say them. If you understand that and why you're doing it, that's what makes you top level, best of the best. Anybody can read, right? But in order to really understand why you're doing the things that you do, that's what separates the best from the average. And it all comes back to focusing on the customer experience and the status level that they believe they're going to achieve when they buy your product or service. Yeah, I sold stock for a while. A lot of you guys know that. I sold stock for a while, right? Series 7, 63, all that stuff, cold calling, D&B cards, cold slamming people all the time. I used to say, like, hey, I spoke to a junior associate of mine 6 months back. One at that time, we promised you we'd call you with one idea and one idea only. Here it is. Grab a pen, give him a symbol, and pitch him. Cold. Never talked to the guy in my life. I used to do that all the time, and I was very, very good at it. But I always tell people now when I do seminars and training and everything else, I always tell people I sold stock technically, but I never really sold stock in my life. And the reason why is because what you sell and what you deliver are two totally different things. Now, if you just take that at face value, it seems like you're scamming people and you're stealing money, right? That's not what I mean. What I mean is that what you sell and what you deliver are two totally different things. I never sold a share of stock in my life. I delivered hundreds of thousands, probably millions of them. But I've never sold a share of stock in my life. What's the difference? When I'm selling stock on the phone, I'm not selling a symbol. I'm not selling Eastman Kodak. I'm not selling the company. I'm not selling the history of the company. I'm not selling the background. I'm not selling the CEO. I'm not selling the financials. What I'm selling to that person is the dream of becoming filthy rich. Now, I'm delivering the stock when he pays for it. But what I'm selling him is the opportunity to become filthy rich. Now, further down the line, where do we go with that? What does that really mean? Because most of the time, becoming filthy rich is meaningless. What it means to most people is if I become filthy rich, it goes back to the same thing. My status level is now higher than my neighbors, my friends, my coworkers, and on and on and on. Right? So yes, we're selling the opportunity to become filthy rich so that, again, what are your neighbors going to think when you pull up with this car? What are your friends going to think? You think your family is going to be offended when you pull up in a brand new Mercedes-Benz to the barbecue every year? That's interesting, right? What do you think your wife's parents are going to think when you have a $50,000 watch on your wrist? More than they make in a year combined. Is that going to be a problem for you? Because you may have to deal with that if you decide to go through with this. And I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Right? We're selling the dream of becoming filthy rich because that dream of becoming filthy rich is directly connected to a higher status level for that person. And we're delivering the tool that maybe will get them there. Now, obviously, in the stock business, we have no idea. Right? I was a salesperson. That's it. You call a stockbroker, yeah, he took a test. Yeah, it was kind of hard. I mean, I studied for a long time, 6 months, 8 months, or whatever it is. I got a 71, so it's pretty hard. But I'm not that smart, so it is what it is. But we know nothing more than you guys do about selling stock. We have analysts that throw a piece of paper on our desk at probably around 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're off to the races. I know nothing about the company I'm selling. The analyst tells me what to say when it comes to the company. When it comes to the sales stuff, that's me. All right, so it's very important that you understand that because if you can apply that to everything that you do, you're going to see your closing ratio if you're in person or your conversion ratio if you're online go through the roof. Now, a lot of people will focus when they write copy on, we're delivering you 4 videos, right? Videos are going to be online. You can download them right away. We're not talking about status yet, are we? Right? It's going to teach you how to lose weight. We're still not talking about status. It's going to teach you how to, eat better. No status. It's going to teach you how to look better. No status, right? What we're talking about, instead of all those things are important, but what we want to focus on, what we want to close on, what we want to really put in their head is how everyone else is going to react to you when you achieve the result that this thing is going to help you get. When you connect all of that together, everything skyrockets. And that's really the key to it all. Now, there's a lot of keys, right? But that's really the main focus, okay? Now, again, when we're talking about things off the internet, whether it's in person or on the phone, tonality is everything, right? If you don't have tonality, the words don't mean anything. If you cannot move your voice in specific ways at certain times throughout a pitch, then the words are meaningless. You do all this status, experience, everything else. You do all that, and none of it's going to matter because nobody's going to listen to you because you're not grabbing their attention. In person, it's the same thing, but you also have body language in person, okay? So if you're in person, you can nail tonality, you can nail the words, but if you look like you're fidgeting with your hands and you feel like you're going to have a heart attack the whole time, no one's going to buy anything from you because you're acting like an idiot. So that ain't going to work either, right? On the internet, though, if you're doing a webinar or you're writing sales copy, doing a sales video, whatever it is, none of that stuff applies. Tonality, well, on a webinar it does. On a video it does too. But written copy, it doesn't apply. And body language certainly doesn't apply on the internet, or whether you're doing a video or a webinar or whatever, or written copy. So that doesn't matter. It's all about the words there. Okay, so that's status. Let's talk about customer experience a little bit. Customer experience is important, and it's something that I always bash to most people, right? You guys, if you've ever taken any training from me or whatever, you've heard me say things like, don't spend 3 weeks buying a domain name. Say that all the time, right? Don't spend 2 weeks picking the right theme for the domain name that you just spent 3 weeks buying. Don't design a header for 6 months. Don't do that stuff. Create something, sell something. Create something, sell something. You also hear me say all the time, customer support is a waste of time. Don't focus on customer support. If somebody comes to me for consulting or coaching or whatever, and they say, we're a customer support focused business, I say, then you're an idiot that's going to go out of business very, very quickly. Why? Because if you're not focused on acquisition, you can't support. What are you supporting? If you're not bringing people in, you're only focusing on supporting things, then you're supporting things that aren't there. We have to get them in the door before we can support them. So acquisition is number one, and support is a very, very distant second. Because if you create your products the right way, and they're perfect from the beginning, and you put your heart and soul into everything that you do, support should be minimal. And the support that you get in, if the customer experience is right, should be constructive criticism that brings you to a point where you can fix what the problem is so that the support goes away. Okay, so that's customer experience. It's making the person feel special for being a part of what you're doing. And that goes on even further because customer experience creates what we call the evangelists, right? There's a reason why people talk about Amazon. There's a reason why people talk about Apple. If you ever notice, if you're sitting at a barbecue with your family or friends or a party or whatever, nobody talks about the Acer computer that they bought. Nobody does, right? Nobody talks about the $29.99 prepaid Android phone that they got that was originally created in 2004 that barely works. Nobody talks about that. But let me tell you something. If you walk into a barbecue with your family or you walk into a party with your friends or whatever it may be, and someone has the brand new iPhone 6 that looks like, a sheet of loose leaf paper, the thing's like massive, I don't even know how people use it. If somebody has that, guess what? You're going to know very, very quickly. Why? Because it's about the experience that they're getting from showing you the item. It's different than status. Right? They have it and they think they're cool just because they have it. That's status. That's different. What I'm talking about here is what they're feeling from saying, hey, I got this thing. Look at that. Right? I bought the iPhone 1, the first one that came out. I got like the first one. It wasn't really the first one, but I got it like right when it came out. It was like the day after they launched it or something. And let me tell you something. I never talked on my phone so much in my life. Every time I went, and I never talked on my phone in my house either. Every time I went out to the store, I was always on the phone because I wanted everyone to see that I had the new cool thing. That's experience, right? Status is just having it. Just letting it sit there on the table. Just letting it sit in your driveway. Letting people drive by and look at it. That's status. Just raising the status just for having it. Showing it off is part of the experience because you're getting a feedback or a feeling from having everyone else see it. It's kind of almost like creating jealousy for other people. That's basically what it is. And believe it or not, right or wrong, I'm not here to judge, but right or wrong, people like that. People like that feeling. If people are jealous of them, they like that. Right? And we try to create that in the sales experience all the time. Another thing about customer experience, you have to make your stuff beautiful. If it's not, it ain't going to work. Okay, now, we're talking about high ticket items here, right? If you're one of those people, and I'm one of these people too, if you're one of these people who have a sales funnel that starts off at $10 and moves up to $1,000, right? Me and Cameron have that all the time. If you're one of those people, the $10 thing doesn't have to be beautiful. It's got to be functional. But the $1,000 thing better be beautiful, or else you're going to lose half the people. Okay? Steve Jobs was famous for this. He's the best product launcher to ever walk the face of the earth. And he is famous for being anal about making things beautiful. That was his thing. He wanted things, he cared so much about the look of a product that he delayed product launches, not because of function, but because of the way that the product looked to the eye. He wanted to have people be proud to own what he put out. And if you look now, even though I think he died 3 years ago, whatever, but if you look at it now, Apple now, you walk into a Starbucks, right? And we'll talk about them in a second. You walk into Starbucks, and you'll see there'll be people there with Chromebooks and Acers and Dells and everything else. But you will see from all the way across the Starbucks that one guy with the MacBook Pro and that Apple on the back of it is full blast. It's like a star in the middle of the place. You can see it from a mile away. Why do they do that? Because they understand that they have to make it beautiful so that people are proud to own it. Because if they're proud to own it and it's beautiful, what does it do? It increases the customer experience, which in turn increases the status. And that's what they're looking to do. Now, I always tell people, again, the same thing about what I was talking about before with stocks. What does Apple sell? Ask that to a room of people. What do they sell? What does Apple sell? iPod, iPhone, MacBook Pro, the other thing, that the monitor, computer thing. That's what they deliver. What they sell is experience and status. Most of the people that have a MacBook Pro don't need it. Most of the people that have an iPhone don't need it. Most of the people that have an iPad don't need it. Most of the people that have all those stuff, those things, don't even use them for what they're supposed to be used for. You have an iPhone 6 that you just quote-unquote edged up. You're one of the idiots that finances a cell phone for some reason, and you wonder why you're still broke. But you finance a cell phone, and you use it to text and call people. You can do that from a flip phone at 7-Eleven. Why the hell do you have a $600 phone that you're paying off for 3 years? That's insanity. But you do it because of the status level that it represents and the customer experience that you get from it. Starbucks is the same thing. Why do people buy Starbucks coffee instead of gas station coffee? Like I said before, gas station coffee will kill you, so that's a bad example. Why do you buy Starbucks coffee as opposed to 7-Eleven coffee or Dunkin' Donuts coffee? Why? It's more money. And I don't even think it's better. I like 7-Eleven coffee better. I actually like making instant coffee at my house better than anything. But why do you go out and buy the cup of Starbucks? Why? Because of the experience that you get from doing it. Because of the status that it brings with it. Starbucks does not sell coffee. They don't. I say this in front of a group of people, they think I'm crazy. But it's true. They don't sell coffee. Starbucks sells experience and status. That is it. If Starbucks was set up like a Dunkin' Donuts, they would be out of business. But they're not. It's a community. It's an environment. It's an experience. You know, when Schultz created Starbucks, he said, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something along the lines of, I want it to be the place between work and home. The meeting place between work and home. It was something like that. And he created that environment. And if you know the story about Starbucks, originally what happened was he went over to Italy and he saw all these little tiny coffee shops all over the place. People loved them. And he tried to bring that whole entire experience. He used the model, right, which we talk about all the time, modeling successful systems that work. He used the model and he brought the entire thing back to the United States, launched it in Seattle, and it was a miserable failure. The reason why it was a miserable failure is because the customer experience was wrong. Why was it wrong? Because people did not want to see people in tuxedos walking around serving them coffee. They didn't want to sit at a little bar with stools on it sipping coffee out of cups that are the size of my thumb. They didn't want to do that. That's what happens in Italy. That's not what happens in Seattle. They didn't want to hear, piano music in the corner like, they did in Italy. They didn't want to hear all that stuff. What they wanted was a hipster type environment with tables and chairs where you can come down with a computer and sit down and do your work, grab a cup of coffee, spend a little bit more money on the coffee, get free Wi-Fi and all that stuff, have some customized drinks and everything else. And when he figured that out and he nailed the customer experience, it took off. But if he never would have nailed the customer experience, Starbucks we wouldn't even know what it is right now because it would be done. He would have never made it off the ground. He would have never made it past one store. Because Starbucks then would have been a Dunkin' Donuts with higher price stuff and less of a selection when it comes to everything. Because Dunkin' Donuts, back then when Starbucks started, it was coffee and some drinks. And now you can get bagels and donuts and everything else. But Dunkin' Donuts has everything, right? You go there, you can get a soda, you can get ice cream, you can get bagels, you can get coffee, you can get donuts, munchkins, and all this other crazy stuff. Back then, Starbucks couldn't do that. Now you can, but back then you couldn't. Okay, so if they would have took that model and said, we're a coffee shop, they would have went out of business. But they're not a coffee shop. They create an experience for somebody, and they raise the status level of the buyer. All right, now, by the way, before we go into low-ticket sales, let's just talk very quickly. If you look at the higher ticket stuff relative to the market that you're in, if you look at the higher ticket stuff in the market that you're in, all of the companies are the same. They all sell status and experience. Every single one of them. Okay? Hyundai, which is what I sold, does not sell status. It doesn't sell experience. It sells convenience. Affordability, convenience, reliability. That's what we sell. Okay? Lexus sells status and experience. Hyundai sells convenience. A Lexus and a Toyota are the exact same vehicle. The exact same car. No difference whatsoever. Besides the L in the front. People will pay double for the L in the front of a Lexus. Even though they know that it's exactly the same car as a Toyota. They'll pay double the amount of money for the L on the front. All right, so let's talk about low-ticket sales. Low-ticket sales is about convenience. It's about quick, easy stuff. You guys always hear me talk about the no-thought process sale, right? I give the pack of gum analogy or example. You go to a gas station to get gas. You walk inside to get a soda, and you're like, I want a soda because I'm thirsty. You walk up to the desk or the cashier, right, or whatever you call it, and you put the soda on there, and you're like, ooh, Tic Tacs, boom, right on the table, right? Or ooh, gum, right on the table. There's no thought involved in the process. You see it, you grab it, you buy it. Done, right? The reason why you do that is because it's convenient, it's easy, it's quick, it's cheap, and you don't care about it. And when you focus on low-ticket sales, that's what you must focus on. If you watch one of my webinars, you never hear me talk about the quickness of deliverability of the product. I actually talk about the opposite, don't I? If you watch the webinars that we do, we always say this is a 8-week training program or a 6-week commitment. When you see one of our lower ticket products, $17, $10, whatever it is, instant download. Get all the stuff right away. Put your information in, boom, it's in your inbox. Why? Because low ticket sales are about ease and convenience, simplicity. High ticket sales are about experience and status. When you're part of the group, when you're part of the inner circle, when you're part of the membership, when you're part of the partnership program, the gold level, platinum level, diamond level, whatever, that's status and experience. But when you're buying a $10 thing, that doesn't matter. It's quick, it's simple, it's there. Click the button, download it, you get it in your inbox in 10 minutes, and you're off to the races, running, rocking and rolling, ready to go. That's what it's about. Okay? So when you start to focus on these things, as opposed to just talking about the features and the benefits and what the product is and how long it's going to take you to do it and how many videos it is and how long the PDF is and all that other stuff, when you start to focus on this stuff, that's when you go from average to a little bit above average to the master. Okay? This is why you see a lot of people, if you go on any of the internet marketing forums, you read any of the books or whatever, you see a lot of people that talk about copywriting. Right? Talk about, how to write copy and how to do webinars and everything else. And you'll see the average is like, people will say, well, you write copy, you get 3%. That's doing really, really well. And they're right. That is doing really, really well if you focus on features and benefits. If you do the basic stock copy, which is basically who you are, why you're qualified to sell them something, what it is that you have for them, and you close the deal. And there's a lot of other things to that, but that's the basics of it, right? If you focus on those things, 3% is really, really good. So how the hell do I get to 12 every single time? How do I do it? I'm not a New York Times best-selling author like the quote-unquote copywriting experts that are out there. I'm not. I never wrote a book in my life, and I probably won't ever because I hate writing. But how did I get to that level? I still sell features and benefits. I still talk about who I am and why I'm qualified to teach what I teach. I still do all those things. I obviously close a deal very, very hard. Address objections, get them into a rebuttal sequence, box them in, circle, close, over and over and over again, right? We do that stuff. So how do I get 12 and they get 3? I get 12 because they focus on, here's how to make $5 million a year. I focus on, get away from the job. Have some free time. Spend more time with your family. What are your neighbors going to think of you when you're home all day? Isn't that weird? Wouldn't it be great to be able to go play golf on Tuesday at 11 a.m. and not have to worry about anything? Status, experience. Now, obviously, all the other stuff is included, but you have to focus on that as well. And that's the driving factor. That's what we call the hot button, right? Everybody always says, when you find the customer's hot button, jump, jump, jump. My sales trainer, when I was first selling cars, my general manager, his name was Danny, he told me that. He said, your job is not really to sell cars. That's what you're going to be doing, but that's not really your job. Your job is to get as many leads that are in the lot to come in and talk to you, and then find out what their hot button is and smash it to death. I was like, okay, it's easy enough, right? Because in my mind, everyone's hot button, status and experience, that's it. If I could show them those two things and I could show them how my vehicle is going to increase their status and increase their experience and give them a good experience, and also because I'm selling a low ticket item in that marketplace, right? And also it's convenient, it's easy, it's quick. If I could show them all those things and prove it to them, the deal is done, right? So right after I would say to them, what is your neighbor going to think when you pull up in a brand new car with a big red bow in the front of it? What I would say right after that is, and guess what? We can have you out of here with your brand new car, your plates, your insurance, everything done, set to go in about an hour and a half. Quick, convenient, done. We were known for what was called the spot. What that means is you walk into the dealership in your old car, and an hour and a half later, you're walking out with the new one. One day, right? Right then and there. No waiting, no coming back for the delivery, nothing. Everything is done right then and there. Convenience. And that's how you become a master salesperson. It's not about rewriting your bullet points and structuring it differently. It's just about focusing on the right things. And in order to become a really good salesperson, like I said before, you have to master the art of human psychology. You don't have to become a psychiatrist, but you have to be able to understand the basics of it, right? I said master it. You don't really have to master it. You could if you want to. I would consider myself pretty much a master of human psychology. You don't have to get to that level, but you have to know the basics of it. For example, I was out the other day I'm not going to say where I was, but I was out the other day with a friend of mine and a couple of friends of mine actually, a place called Port Jeff. It's on the North Shore of Long Island, right over by where I live. And we were out at a bar, and I don't really go to bars because I don't drink, but it was a group of friends that I haven't seen in a long time because they had moved away, and they had come back to visit family, and I haven't seen them in a long time. So they called me and asked me if I wanted to go out, so I went out there for a little while. And there was a girl at the bar, and I wasn't like hitting on her or like interested at all, but I said hello and like whatever. We were just out hanging out. If I were to walk up to that girl and face her directly, she would have never interacted with me. But because I walked up to her and approached her from the side, we had a great 5-minute conversation. That's the start of it, right? That's mastering human psychology. That little tiny thing makes or breaks the conversation. If I approach her from the front, no good. If I approach her from the side, I'm in. If I stand closer than 3.5 feet away, the chances of me entering that conversation and continuing it are slim to none. If I stand further than 3.5 feet away, she will not hear me. Well, she may hear me, but she won't hear the normal person, right? So the goal is to get about 3.5 feet away from the side. That's mastering human psychology. When you get into a room with somebody and you're setting up a deal, you need to know those things. Now, when you approach a guy, and you're a guy, you never approach from the side. You walk right into his face. No, not into his face, but you still keep the 3.5 foot distance, but you approach him from the front because it shows respect. With a girl, if you're a guy, I'm assuming if you're a guy like me, if you walk up to a girl facing her, it's threatening. If you walk on the side, it's non-threatening. If you walk up to a guy and face them in person, right in their face, 3.5 feet away, it's respectful. If you walk up to a guy too close to his face, it's threatening. If you walk to the side, it's disrespectful. If you don't know those things, it may seem small, but if you don't know those things, you lose 0.5% on your closing rate. Maybe 1% on your closing rate because people just have that stuck in their head like, this guy was a little shady when he walked in. I don't really like it. And that's stuck and you can never get over it. Our goal here is to get every single qualified prospect to buy. Every one of them. And in order to be at that level, you must master it all. Okay? And again, when you talk about approaching people and talking to them the right way and keeping the right distance and everything else, it all goes back to the customer experience, right? Because if they have a good experience with you when you're selling to them, they're going to have a really good experience with you throughout the entire process. If they think you're an idiot when you're selling to them, then they're not going to like you when they buy your stuff, if they even do. Okay? So, that is it. All right? When you're selling stuff, you always have to remember experience and status is everything. If you can increase the customer experience and you can increase their status level by showing them that you can increase their status level and experience by taking part in your offer, the chances of you closing a deal goes up dramatically. Okay, one last thing I'll leave you with is this. We talk about this all the time, and most of you guys that are watching this probably know it already if you've been through any of my training before, but from a salesperson standpoint, status is everything. Okay, and there's two parts to that. One of them I talk about all the time. One of them I very rarely talk about because I don't think that the people that I talk to really are even at this level or even close to it. But for the general audience, it's important. When you're selling stuff, status is everything. Okay, so what that means is you want to enter into a conversation at their level, but a little bit higher. Okay, now if you enter in too high, you lose connection. If you enter in below them, you lose credibility. Okay, so if I come to you and I say, yeah, I've been doing this sales training stuff and this marketing stuff and this internet stuff for a while, but I'm probably not that much better than you, but I could probably show you a few things. All my credibility's gone, right? But if I walk into that conversation and I say, yeah, I worked with this person a while back, and I worked with this person a while back, I wrote copy for this guy, and now basically what we're doing is I'm working with my partner Cameron, and we build these types of training programs and everything else, and we can definitely help you develop something like that. I'm at his level, a little bit above, enough credibility and status so that I could teach him something, but I'm not like, dude, listen, I work for Donald Trump. I work for Donald Trump, I work for Bill Gates, I work for Warren Buffett, I work for all these major people, and I could probably help you, but honestly, I'm the man. If I said that, there's a disconnect. He's like, I'm this nobody who's just getting started. This guy is way at the top of the mountain. He's never going to be able to help me with anything because he's so far ahead of where I am. Now, that person may be a good mentor or someone to look up to or someone to model in the future, but now there's too much of a disconnect. Okay, so status in sales is very important. You don't want to go too high. You always have to go higher than the other person, but you don't want to go too high that there's a disconnect. And you never want to go below them because if you do, you lose credibility. Okay? That's why I have a big problem with everybody saying, and this is just the idiot cycle happening, right? But I have a big problem with everybody saying, become the expert. No, don't become the expert. Become better at the people become better at the topic than the people that you're teaching. There's like 250,000 guitar lesson people or something like 300,000 people, something like that teach guitar lessons in the United States. None of them are Jimi Hendrix. He's dead. None of them. He died like 30 years ago. He overdosed on heroin or something. They're not him. He was probably the greatest guitar player ever. Right? So the point is, you don't have to become the greatest guitar player ever to teach people how to play guitar. You have to be better than the people that you're teaching. And that's the status connection. You have to be better than them, status, a little bit higher, but you can't be so good that there's no connection, because if you do, the connection isn't there and they're not going to buy from you. And if you're below them, you're of no value to them. So what's the point? Okay? All right, that is it. If you have any questions, let us know. And if not, we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.